move that over here and grab this guy and this one here as well. And we'll come back for the other ones later. So moving to the step 4, which is to discuss. And I'm going to give it 3 minutes to start with for each one, and we'll just kick off a discussion around them. Let me just remove this.
Cool.
Go for it.
So remote onboarding is really difficult. I've joined 2 companies during pandemic, and both of them seem to have run things in pretty much a similar way, where you start off by having a load of Zoom calls with absolutely everyone in the company to say, here's what everyone in the company does. And that's usually compressed into a week or 2. And then following that, and that's usually at like a really high manager kind of level. And then after that, you're kind of left in this limbo of, okay, go join a team. So you get a lot of really high level information about the company, and then not a lot about what your team is doing, and you have to find your feet on that. But some of the good things that I found is that online buddies are much more prevalent and present now. Where you'll get somebody maybe in your area, engineering or something, and they will usually show you around or come to meetings with you, or book in at the very least daily meetings for half an hour just to keep you going for like however long you need it, which has been really cool. So there's an intent to share culture at a high level, definitely, for a company point of view. And then at a lower level, you get a buddy, so it's a bit more interactive. What have other people seen?
Well, I actually had something fairly similar in that I started my new company in January and we had a fire. So very quickly we were all remote. So it's not COVID related, but I actually found almost the opposite to you, Callum, that actually there were very, very few meetings, and there's still people now in the organisation at a high level that I have no idea who they are. You know, I bumped into the CEO on a team thing the other day. I had absolutely no idea who she was. No idea at all, because nobody had introduced, nobody had actually said these things. And for pretty much the first month, I was just left to it. You know, I had my laptop and that was it. So it was just sort of picking information. There seemed to be no plan around it, which is why I was intrigued by your little note to say, hey, and to get other people's thoughts. What are other people finding?
It's really interesting. So I currently kind of shifted over from one place to another. I'm just going to add 60 seconds in this conversation. Yeah, I shifted from one place to another, and I was in charge of doing kind of onboarding and hiring in my previous place. And we didn't have too much documentation around onboarding. I spent about 6 months before pandemic producing some sort of draft documentation around how to onboard people in tech and product teams. And I found that it's just when I usually start, I kind of like find it, I just run into things and I start playing, like exploring, looking for documentation myself, which not every place likes, but I kind of self-start mindset. So I'm never really hitting sort of those roadblocks. I find org charts or whatever, and I start mapping things out. But I realized a lot of people starting were like kind of sitting there and not knowing what's going on. So I just started sketching that out. So my thoughts around that is, if you can shift your mindset towards sort of just exploratory approach to onboarding and producing documentation, you'll create something for the future of the next people. And people, like, still to this day, someone goes, oh, your onboarding document, like, we remember you by that. It's like, okay, cool, awesome. So yeah, that's my piece of thought.
Just to feed into that, I think it's important to say that as testers and as well as engineers, we can really want to do the thing where we dive in very quickly and go, I'm adding value, like on day one, and be like, I found all these bugs. But if we drill down too quickly and get into the minutiae of the code or the repos or the functions that we're focusing our testing on, or will be, we forget to engage with the company as a whole and get that holistic view. So definitely make sure to be kind to yourself, even if it's like 1 month, 2 months, where you're like, I'm going to do some testing and I'm going to show my value. But at the same time, this is my new company that I'm hoping to, be with for some time. How do I learn about it and engage with it and meet the people as well? So definitely during COVID, be kind to yourself in that respect.
Totally agree.
Yeah, as part of that, on the first, I think it was a month in, I started then organising a Friday afternoon virtual pub. Just so I got to see the team and meet the team, and that's now expanded out. I think we've got about 30 or 40 people that now are on the invite for that. So that's part of getting into the company, is organising some sort of social event for yourself to meet others. If nobody's going to do it for you, you've got to grab the bull by the horns and do it yourself.
Definitely.
Yeah, cool. I've extended this a couple of times. So is anyone else have anything to contribute from either experience of onboarding people or being onboarded?
I was just going to pitch in with what I've seen from my side as well. So we've seen clients recently, as well as people that are starting new positions, ask for meetings or video chats with the direct team ahead of actually joining. So the week before they start or 2 weeks before, just a half an hour chat, just to get to know the people, completely away from work, and talk about any stuff that's unwork related, and just get that sort of initial introduction that you might get if you were in the office, I guess, and you all went into a meeting room and sat around the table. So yeah, I guess from a hiring perspective, maybe have that in mind to try and fit in a team intro ahead of actually the start date, because obviously when people start, I guess there's a lot going on in terms of the actual working day, so it might be difficult to do that. So try and find some time outside of that, I guess, to get everybody to have a small intro.
Nice one. Cool. I think it's fair to say we've done an extensive discussion around this. So I'm going to move it to discussed, and let's pick on the next one, which is start with diversity and inclusion. Let's put in some time here. Whoa. So this one I've added, so this one I've added, and basically one of the things that I found was that a lot of companies, they just subconsciously add or hire people without thinking about sort of diversifying from different perspectives, and thinking about culture adds rather than culture fit. So for instance, culture fit would be subconsciously, you just look around how people are in your team, and you just kind of like, oh, we're kind of looking for someone who might be, back-end developer-esque, someone who's introverty and quiet and doesn't, say anything. And you'll find that a lot of sometimes when that happens, you'll go into like your team or like a wider team, and you'll see like almost segregation in some way. These people are quiet, these people are louder, these people are like, exploratory there. So diversity and inclusion comes in different areas. So it's important to ensure that you overcome that bias by, learning a bit about psychology and understanding how you can overcome your own biases and identifying them during interviews, pre-interviews. Like one of the things that I think important is shift left and think about how you can identify areas when you're putting together a job description. How does that target people? What are you trying to say about your role in the company? So those are really critical things. I'm proud to say that in my previous company, my team was really good divided between in terms of gender. So yeah, it's important. And I've had interesting cases where I'd argue with internal HR about hiring practices and how it's like, yeah, anyway, for another day.
It's interesting when we talk about diversity and inclusion. It's definitely important to say that we're not talking about like hitting certain quotas or anything like that. What we're doing is we're saying, how do we find ways to open the doors to get more people applying or get more candidates that are available? So by doing things like stripping gender bias away from your job applications, or ensuring that you set out your meetings or your interview meetings to say, if your kids, you know, talk in the background or anything like that, that's fine. We're all living our lives at home. It's all good. Things like that. It's not say, oh, now we have to have this many people who are parents or this many people who are LGBTQ. What it's saying is you're creating an interviewing environment that is just more open so that more people will want to engage with it. And then you get more CVs and you get to pick from a wider pool of awesome candidates, which is a really important thing to say when we're talking D&I, because especially in engineering, we sometimes get that viewpoint come back at us of, ugh, why should we lower our standards to allow ... people to apply, when it's not that at all. We're trying to ensure that we can allow all the great people to apply.
Yeah, and that's not only from obviously a race or gender or other beliefs point of view. That's also mindset. You know, you want that diverse mindset. So you want some introverts, you want some extroverts, you want some deep thinkers, you want some, you know, you want from an entire category. You will need some people to innovate. You need some people to just slog away and keep the pace going, be the steady people. So it is very much an open to all. Let's just interview as many people as we can for each role. And you know, one of the grand things that I did was I actually recruited the cleaner to be one of my QA team. You know, she was there mopping around, and then she asked a question one day as to what this big board on the wall was and what all that meant. And it was like, ooh, you know what? Half the QA team haven't asked that question. What does this board in the corner of their office actually mean? But the cleaner has. Do you want a job? So it was actually really, really good. And she was fantastic. She went on to, I think she's joined the Ministry of Testing and all these things. And she's actually does conferences and things now. And she started off as a cleaner about 17 years ago. And literally it's just that huge void of mindset as well as anything else.
That's awesome.
I agree. Nice.
To build on that, one of the things that I've seen in the last couple of teams that I've worked in is when we're hiring, the whole community of practice will say, like, we know what we've got, what are we missing? So things like, you know, looking at the board or understanding certain things, and try deliberately to say, well, this candidate's got, you know, these things that we're completely missing as a team. And we're hiring to fill in those spaces as well, which is really interesting, rather than saying, I want more of me because narcissism, or because I know that I'm a good tester or whatever. It's, well, we've got me. What else have we got? Or what else do we need?
Definitely agree. I can build on top of that as well. I guess in a way, it's I've had someone who had an argument in the interview. A lot of people are afraid of debating, like heated debates in interviews, and this person had a complete opposite perspective on things, but it was an easy conversation about two people disagreeing on things, but coming to a conclusion of certain level of agreements. And I just hired her, and I was like, thank you. Like, I need someone in the team that can put up a sort of a good debate and say, you know what, you have a point, but here's all the other points that are, you know, be a devil advocate, and not in a hindrance way, but as in like quite productive way. So I done that before. One of the key things that I would say to anyone who is hiring in the future or now is look at the apprentices. Like, there's a lot of students out there right now, especially during like what's going to happen to them now, who are not going to have the opportunity to maybe get that experience. If you have the opportunity, try and look at apprentices, because those younger people are going to be our future generation, and taking them under the wing right now and teaching them things will be beneficial for everyone.
I'd agree there.
Cool. Does anyone else have anything to add to this?
Just a really silly one. There was a South African software company that completely missed the mark with delivering I think it was an ATM piece of software to Asia. And basically they met and they arranged everything based on somebody of South African height. So therefore, when it actually came to deliver this software, half the people in their target audience couldn't actually see half the buttons because they were so high up the thing. So they ended up actually having to go out and buy steps. So the bank bought a little step to put in front of the ATM. So each time you went up to an ATM, you stood up on your step to use the ATM.
It's incredible. Is that a unit test integration test issue there?
I think it's a combination of many different flaws there. But again, if you've got more diverse people, more diverse groups in your team, then these things will become apparent.
It's true. Very true. Cool. I am shifting that slowly over here if no one has any objections. And cool. So moving on to the next part, which is Callum, I think that's you.
Yeah, so one of the big things that's happening during interviewing at this point, or even just sifting CVs, is we are getting so many CVs per role, especially at the moment, especially during COVID. People are panicking, people are firing out their CVs to every company, and you can end up with hundreds of CVs per role. And not all of the CVs are of a high caliber. A lot of people are just spray and pray. They're very much sending things out without tailoring them, without understanding the company or the role. It's just a speculative thing. We're having ones that are very much copy paste of other people's CVs as well. And yeah, very much so. So it's really difficult. And how do we deal with just getting through effectively these things, and what skills are we developing to basically by eye sift through CVs and look out for keywords and things? And one of the things that I've been doing is really just looking for tailoring of CVs to say, has this person actually is this something that they've actually they want this job, or is this just a speculative application? Really. So that usually comes in just from that about me or the paragraph at the top, or even just what the role, what they've got in the past that relates to this role as well. But it is difficult because you do have to get yourself through it and you have to get your eye in for that. So I'd be interested in seeing what other people have found with regards to this.
I totally agree. Yeah, I mean, if anyone else has to contribute first, I'd love to hear as well.
I think for myself, it has actually been that hard slog of running through each of the CVs, scribbling questions together as to what you might want to ask them at the interview stage. But it's been a slog. It really has. So I'm very, very interested if anybody's got any techniques, but I'm also shying away from keyword searching and things like that, because you can put keywords in. If those are your keywords in your job spec, if they're sensible, they'll put some of them actually in their CV.
True. For me, this is a huge pain point. I've had to, unfortunately, I couldn't, like, one of the things you could do is obviously hire Ashley, right? So that's an easy one. He'll do it for you. Unfortunately, in my previous places, I haven't had pleasure of being able to hire a recruiter to go through this and got tools and skills, and I've had to go through hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of CVs because I'm one of those people who is pedantic and doesn't like to just filter by keywords. Just by doing that, I like to go through and make sure I understand the CV and the person. It's been easy for some of them because some of them applied in different language, and it's like this headquarters is in London and I don't speak Spanish or Italian. I can speak a bit of Italian or understand it, but that's not the point. So I had to straight away decline them. And for me, it's been one of the things is trying to see their experience. I don't really care too much about gaps anymore. Like I don't look at the time gaps. I don't like, I do maybe ask a question at the interview, but most of the time is quickly look for the CV, look for sort of a flow, like a nice one. One is actually people stop doing is cover letters. Cover letters give away so much interesting stuff. And exploratory testing is, you believe it or not, is one of those things that no one puts. And if I do see, actually, I say don't look at keywords, but somebody does put exploratory testing, and I'm like excited. I'm like, yay! Or risk-based testing. I'm like, ooh, awesome. So these are little things I do actually look for. Apart from that, everyone just puts automation everywhere. So if somebody doesn't put automation there, that's kind of a plus for me. It means that they probably focused more on their testing skill set. It really is contextual. Depends on what you're hiring for, obviously. But for me, 5 minutes or so, skim for CV, have a look if you kind of like it. If it gives you good vibes, then straight away jump on a call with them. Don't like, you'll get more from a call than you would get from just looking at the CV.
I'd agree there, and clearly Callum has exploratory testing all over his CV. But but yeah, I would agree. Some of the most beneficial things about reviewing CVs is actually getting that person's phone number, arranging a telephone call with them to actually, even 5-10 minutes. It's much quicker than I would have read their CV, to actually have that conversation and work out who they are and what they believe in.
Yeah,
My
I think
CV,
one of the sorry, go on.
so my CV is so exploratory that it's basically just a scavenger hunt. Just send people out there to do this stuff for me. But
treasure map.
Yeah. But thinking of CVs as well, one thing that I have noticed again is these sort of copy paste CVs, and you really start to be able to get your eye in after a while with seeing people who basically have just taken a CV and then put their own name in it as well. And this is beyond like the taking away from tailoring, and they haven't tailored to the role. This is now, you're getting a lot of candidates who have taken somebody else's CV that maybe they've worked with, or there's a good template out there somewhere, and you can start to spot these because you get your eye and you go, well, I've seen this CV before. So either from a formatting perspective or from a content perspective, that's really important. And just thinking of formatting and content as well, like that's your CVs are the first port of call into the company, and you can start to ascertain a bit about somebody's personality. You can ascertain a bit about that person just through how they've put their CV. How do they marshal the information on their CV? What kind of information did they think was important? Did they use a template, or did they create something bespoke? So I always like a CV that hasn't come in through like a Word template or has been sanitized by a recruitment agency, because it allows me to start to very quickly go, right, this kind of person, this is, or, they like Ariel. Good. I like Ariel. We're going to get on great.
Nice one. Ashley, I'd like to hear what you do.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like you said. I think since the start of the pandemic, for any advert that we put out from our side, we received 200 to 300 applications, and as much as it's out, from our side on the agency side, it's our job to try and speak to everybody and filter through. It's just there's not enough time in the day to obviously speak to that many people. So it's like you say, not so. I don't like to do the keyword search, because anybody can put a technology or a testing tool on their CV, and you're going to pick that up. So I don't like to do that. But I think going from Callum's perspective, I like to look at the layout of the CV, see how they've put the CV together, because if they're showing enough attention to detail on their own CV, because like you say, it's the first point of call, then they're obviously serious about their search, or they're taking themselves seriously and being prepared in that side of it. And then I guess it's all about that sort of, like you say, that introduction on the CV at the top, as much as if it's similar to a cover letter. in a sense. It tells you a little bit more about them and what their main focuses are, and get a feel for that. So I try to use that as my sort of first factor of eliminating those CVs in the process. Obviously, to try and work out a list of, if I've got 300 CVs in front of me, I could, physically I can probably only speak to 100 to 150 in one day at best.
Wow.
But yeah, so I try and filter it through that way first. Just have a look at the layout of the CV, and then from that you can take the context of that. So what information are they giving me from the CV? And like I say, that first sort of paragraph, the last couple of positions they've worked in, obviously, if they're descriptive in what they've done, as opposed to saying, worked with WebDriver IO, Cypress IO, and JavaScript, or if they actually said, well, what we've done is during this role, I used these tools to put together X, Y, and Z. This helped us perform better in this area, or something a bit more descriptive, I guess. Then that way, it's just get on the phone for 5 minutes and ask. A lot of people, I mean, you can tell within that time if they're going to be a right fit for the position, I guess, in the sense that a lot of people now, they're looking for communicators. They're looking for people that can come in and be proactive and really be sort of a team player, I guess, in the sense that, they want people that can come in and not as much need to be shown the way, but they need to be sort of self-starting and as I say, proactive, because everybody's remote now, so it's difficult to go up to somebody's desk or lean on somebody's shoulder to help out. So yeah, best thing, 5 minutes on the phone out of those that we filter through, and just say, okay, I've got your CV, but you tell me what you've been doing, or you tell me how you did this, and get a feel for that person, how they sort of communicate what they've been doing as well. But yeah, I think obviously from your side, you haven't got that time to be speaking to everybody, so it is difficult. But I think that introduction on the CV is probably the best sort of port of call, along with the formatting, because as you say, I think especially within a sort of QA sort of testing environment, your attention to detail should be natural to you. So you'd think if the layout's correct, then or if the layout's incorrect, then this person's just not interested in the actual role and they're scattergunning their CV, as Cam says. And yeah, I think that's the best way to try and do it, because I think if you do a keyword search, you can still come up with a number of people that aren't going to be suitable or may not be right for what you're looking for, I guess, as well. Yeah, it's a difficult one at this time, because a lot of people in a position where they, unfortunately, they I don't know whether they have to do the scattergun, because it's coming a time of desperation, for some, because there's not that many opportunities out there. But yeah, I think it can be counterproductive to do that, obviously, because if you are applying for X amount of roles and they're all irrelevant, you may tarnish your own personal branding or personal name as well from that side. But yeah, I guess in terms of filtering, just try and look out for that. But those two sort of key factors, I guess, the introduction and the the presentation.
Nice one. That was sorry, go on.
Is it something it matters whether it is in PDF format or Word format? Anything is okay. The CV format.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it doesn't matter which format it is. As long as it's laid out clearly and presented well, it doesn't matter which format, I guess.
Yeah.
PDFs are good because they preserve your formatting across different devices. So if you want to ensure that your formatting that you've done is persisted, regardless of who's looking at it on what machine, go for a PDF. If you want it to be more editable and copy pastable, if that's your intention, then like a Word document is a better way to go.
Yeah.
Can I pitch in? Yeah, in my previous role as head of QA, there are two kind of approaches. One is we're working with the recruitment consultant, which I prefer, by the way, because they know what they're doing and they send across, big fan actually, and they send across 5 CVs and I can get to shortlist 3 of them. Whereas internal recruiters, I mean, out of what I have, worked with, they probably send pretty much everything that comes their way because they do want to be seen as making the choice there. And it's up to me to kind of go through it. Then it becomes a bit tougher. And then I have to go towards something what Ashley is talking about, the format. And the big thing that puts me off is spell checks, spelling mistakes and formatting. Probably, yeah, in my subconscious mind. I'm not so aware of it, but yes, formatting, spelling mistakes and bad grammar kind of puts me off. So that's the starting point. But then again, I'm looking for specific, if I'm looking for a manual tester, right? There's different things that I'm looking at. If I'm looking for automation specialist, and again, I'm looking for the technologies that they're working in, the kind of edge that gives people an edge, the kind of thing that gives people an edge is whether they have had extensive experience in automation or they had been a developer before, things like these. So these are the kind of things that I look for. But again, before I put them across a table and talk to them, this is good old pre-COVID days. I would actually have that call, 10-15 minutes. And it's the attitude that I pick up on the phone, the can-do attitude. I think that's the key, because in the world of QA, anything is possible. You can, from being a manual tester, you can pick up skills to become an automation tester, or you can be brilliant at exploratory testing if you understand the business and the objectives behind the product or service that you're testing. You can be brilliant at that. That's something that really gets me, even if that person does not have the skill, but he's showing that attitude and he or she has got that keenness to say, I will do well in this kind of a role. I think that's the key for me. Having said that, that was my approach. Now I'm on the other side where I am, applying and stuff like that. So on that front, I know most of you are in the kind of positions where you're recruiting. The question for all of you is really, does a cover letter really work? Because do recruiting, wherever we are in that chain, do these people have so much of time to go into the cover letter? I know Ryan, you did mention that cover letter gives a lot of stuff, but does it really matter? Is my question. I have not heard anybody talk about my cover letter till now, and I've got numerous calls as such.
Definitely gives a bit of flavour around the role, and although it may not be discussed specifically, I'm finding anyway from the ones that I've seen, it may tip you over the edge into having that phone call, especially if you start to use that cover letter to talk about things that wouldn't normally be in your CV. So during COVID times, talking about things like, how do you like to learn? Are you a self-starter at learning? Can you learn using online materials? How do you pair? Do you pair using Zoom? How good are you at Slack? All those types of things that are really useful now that might not go onto your general CV. Somebody might go, this is somebody who has thought about how they're going to integrate into my business and hit the ground running, or use like online onboarding in a successful way and will join in brilliantly. Sometimes people might pull out those questions for a first fit conversation. Right. Sometimes they'll use that and the CV, whatever information's there. So it's definitely useful, and it's again, it's just another page of information that somebody can go through. But again, don't make it like this huge block of text that somebody has, because they'll just skim it. If you can give people like salient points of, I can do stuff online, I can do stuff remotely, I can work from home in this brilliant way, I do a lot of online sharing of information in this lean coffee that I went to on this day. Things like that are really gonna get people interested.
Yeah. Cool. To add on top of that, like keeping it short, don't do like huge pages. Think about you've gone through your own experience of hiring people. Think about what you would like to see. How would you like to digest that information? How easy is it to read? Bullet points, 250 words, very small, easy, introduce yourself and whatever, put some interesting parts in there. It just gives a personality about it. And actually, a lot of times when I look at a nice cover letter, I'm like, okay, I don't really care too much about the stuff in CV because I know the context of what I'm hiring. And, you know, I look at quickly at the CV and I'm like, cool, that's nice. I'd like to talk to this person because it seems, you know, something that would work well in our team. One of the things that I would say to everyone who's, you know, to all of us actually, in terms of diversity and inclusion when it comes to looking at CVs, not everyone has access to maybe tools or skill sets to make their CV look amazing. I do agree, looking at font 8 of some weird font type is really, really painful. So in that case, it's kind of like almost a bias of just skipping it. But it's so important to try and think about diversity and inclusion when looking at CVs that are not pleasant or difficult to read, simply because they may not have necessary skill sets to produce a decent a CV. So simple as yeah, that's all I have to say. Obviously, yeah, there's a given stuff, like if you look at it, there's too much text, 4 pages of font 8, and you go like, what's going on here? That's, yeah.
Yep. Just to jump in there, sorry, there are several points that I wanted to jump in. There was one CV that I had sent through, and this guy was a QA cum UX expert, and the agent had sent on his original CV as opposed to any sort of Word document that the agent at the time pulled it across. And this CV had little tiny cartoony things in it. It had bright colours. It had almost like a paisley background, and it had this other thing. And yes, thank you, Callum. It was absolutely dreadful. And it was instantly dismissed. You know, no chance. You know, this is a QA person with apparently UX experience, and yet has produced this ghastly document. And then there was recently I had a cover letter come through with a CV, and the cover letter said all about, you know, he was learning from home whilst also teaching the children. So they were all sat around this dining. It was like this wonderful little story, and unfortunately, the CV was just a part of somebody else's CV. Because I think if it had been truthful in what he had said in his CV, he probably would have got the job. But he said about spec flow, but you sort of asked him on the call, so where have you used spec flow? And he says, "Oh, I've never used spec flow." But it's on your CV. But also, just on a funny note about actually reviewing your own CV, for about a decade, I had the word embalming on my CV. And I'd never noticed it. No recruiters had ever noticed it. No companies had ever noticed it. But I was apparently embalming something on my CV. And I'd never noticed it. And one job agent came back and said, "Well, they've dismissed your CV because they don't know what you're on about with this. I think you've got the wrong word." And it was like, and it was literally that critiquing of this one company forced me then to actually review my entire CV, and there are about 5 or 6 wrong words on it. So that was obviously using Microsoft Word spell checking, because I've got dyslexia. So almost all of my words originally are spelled phonetically. There you go. And sometimes it just corrects to the wrong words. I think that doesn't look right, but it's told me it's right, and nobody's ever fed back on it. So actually, to get that feedback on improving your CV, on helping people out, I think that's an important key role that people like yourself, Ashley, play in that feedback process. But yeah, that's me.
Very true. I like that. Good story. Did you take their job, or did they hire you? Go like, "You're the first company to do this. I like you. I hire you, company."
Yeah, well, indeed, absolutely. I've used that particular agency to recruit people now.
Nice. Cool. I think it's fair to say we need a whole different lean coffee session around CVs, Ash.
I think that'll steer us on for another week. Yeah.
We do have a few minutes, but I don't know if you want to wrap up now or if you want to pick up one more card.
It's up to you guys. I'm free for sort of 10 minutes or so. I'm not sure what your schedule looks like.
Sorry, I have to leave now. Now, if you do, excuse me, please. Yeah,
okay, no problems. In that
thank
case,
you.
should we wrap up?
Yeah, okay. Let's wrap things up then. So thanks, thanks for taking the lead on this one, Oleg, with the board, and thanks everybody that's joined us today. Real good conversation. I've enjoyed getting involved this week as well. So yeah, thanks for including me. But no, what we'll do is anyone's got any questions on today's today's meetup, then feel free to drop me an email and we can obviously just obviously connect outside of this. If not, I'm not sure if you saw my messages on LinkedIn and through the group, but we're gonna be running these every last Thursday monthly. So next month it's going to be the 17th, given that obviously we're running into Christmas. So yeah, hope you can all join us then, but if not, I'll speak to you all soon.
Thanks, Ash. And just a
Thanks
quick one
guys.
to everyone. Just a quick one. I wanted to say, like, everyone else can run their own lean coffees, as in terms of, like, invite people on LinkedIn. People will join. Trust me, it's an awesome thing. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Excellent.
Thanks, Ash.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.